She had everything: fame, fans, and a future. But just hours before her 22nd birthday, she was found dead in her boyfriend's apartment. And what he told the cops made no sense. Don't forget to subscribe. This story takes twists you won't see coming. She had just finished filming a video for her subscribers. Bright lights, warm laughter, the sound of music playing low in the background. A birthday banner hung crookedly on the wall behind her, and she joked about how she was finally going to get some rest before turning 22. The countdown was on. She smiled wide, threw up a peace sign, and told everyone, "See you tomorrow." That was the last time anyone saw her alive. The clock kept ticking, but she didn't show up for her live stream. No updates. No posts. No replies. Her fans were the first to notice. Comments poured in, asking if she was okay. Messages filled her inbox. Hours passed. Then news broke that shook the entire internet. Her body was found, lifeless, in her boyfriend's apartment. Her 22nd birthday would never come. It wasn't the story anyone expected. She was known for her humor, her energy, her daily uploads. She wasn't just building a platform, she was building a future. But when officers arrived at the residence just before dawn, they were met with silence. The apartment door was unlocked. The lights were on. A candle had burned itself down to the base. And in the middle of the living room, surrounded by deflated balloons and unopened gifts, was the body of Kayla Rivera. No visible injuries. No signs of struggle. Just a quiet stillness that made even the most seasoned detectives pause. Her boyfriend, Jordan Hayes, claimed he'd been asleep in the next room. Claimed she'd taken something before bed. Claimed she'd seemed off that night. His voice trembled when he told the dispatcher she wasn't breathing. But the words he used, and the time he made the call, those details didn't sit right with anyone. Kayla was loved by millions. To them, she was unstoppable. To her family, she was everything. To her best friends, she was fearless and kind, the kind of person who texted, "I love you," before every flight and brought extra snacks just in case someone else forgot theirs. Her death didn't make sense. It didn't add up. And the closer investigators looked, the more questions surfaced. What was she doing at his apartment that late? Why were her final text messages deleted from her phone? And why did Jordan wait 4 hours before calling for help? She had plans that weekend. A reservation for 2. A playlist titled, "Birthday Baddie." She had laid out her outfit. She had written a caption she never got to post. This wasn't just a tragic ending. This was the beginning of a case that would fracture friendships, split families, and send waves through an entire online community. A case that started with a YouTube video and ended in a morgue. And somewhere between those final seconds on camera and the moment she was found, the truth disappeared, along with any hope of turning 22. Los Angeles was already waking up when officers crossed the threshold of apartment 1403, tucked inside a glass-paneled high-rise that promised luxury and quiet to anyone who could afford it. The kind of place you didn't expect to become a crime scene. A faint trace of vanilla hung in the air, the kind that came from overpriced candles and beauty products. The flat-screen television was still on, paused on the last seconds of a Netflix show. The apartment was neat. Too neat. No dishes in the sink, no signs of a struggle. Nothing that would raise suspicion, except for the silence. Kayla Rivera lay stretched out on a cream-colored rug. She was dressed in pajama shorts and a hoodie. One of her earrings had come loose. Her phone was face down beside her, screen black, wiped clean. The battery was still at 60%. The officer who found her checked for a pulse, even though he knew he wouldn't find one. The paramedics who arrived minutes later confirmed it. She had been gone for hours. Her body was cold. Rigor had already set in. The time of death, later confirmed by the coroner, placed it somewhere around 1 a.m. But Jordan didn't call 911 until 4:58. He met the responding officers at the door. He looked exhausted, shirtless, eyes sunken. Said he'd fallen asleep. Said he thought she'd just passed out. Said he didn't want to panic. His voice cracked when he said her name, but he never asked if she could be revived. Never begged the medics to save her. Just stood there. Quiet. Watching. Detectives started asking questions immediately. How long had she been there? What had they done that night? Had she been drinking? Was she on anything? Jordan answered everything. Calmly. Almost rehearsed. He told them they had dinner, watched a movie, fell asleep on the couch. He said Kayla had taken something to help her sleep. He didn't know what. He hadn't asked. Said she didn't seem like herself lately. But that part, the suggestion that she'd been struggling, didn't match what everyone else knew. Her phone records, once retrieved through a warrant, painted a different picture. She had spent the entire afternoon on FaceTime with her best friend, excitedly planning the weekend. She had ordered cupcakes from her favorite bakery. She had been texting Jordan's cousin, asking for ideas on what to surprise him with for his upcoming birthday. She had sent voice notes, long and happy. She sounded alive. The autopsy came back 2 days later. The cause of death was ruled as acute toxicity from a combination of prescription sleep medication and alcohol. But the bruises along her arms and ribs raised concern. They weren't consistent with a fall. They weren't consistent with CPR. They were small. Repetitive. Fresh. Defensive. Detectives went back to the apartment with a forensics team. Under the bathroom sink, they found a nearly empty bottle of sleeping pills prescribed in Jordan's name. On the edge of the kitchen counter, they found traces of vomit that had been wiped down with bleach. And in the trash, buried beneath paper towels and takeout containers, they found something else. A birthday card. Unopened. With Kayla's name on it. The handwriting didn't match Jordan's. The surveillance footage from the building added another layer. Kayla had arrived at the apartment at 9:41 p.m. She was alone. Wearing a hoodie. Carrying a small gift bag. There was no visible sign of distress. She buzzed herself in, waved at the concierge, took the elevator to the 14th floor. That was the last image of her alive. At 2:47 a.m., the same elevator was triggered again, this time by Jordan. He was wearing gloves. Carrying 3 large black trash bags. He looked straight into the security camera. Said nothing. Pressed the lobby button and walked out of frame. He returned 9 minutes later. No bags. When questioned about the footage, Jordan said he was taking out old music equipment. But he couldn't explain why he had gloves on. He couldn't explain why there was no equipment found in the trash bins or loading dock. And he couldn't explain why Kayla's hoodie, the one she was seen wearing in the footage, was never found among her belongings. As the investigation continued, friends started speaking out. Kayla's best friend revealed texts that were sent just 2 weeks before her death. "I don't know how to tell you this," one message read, "but I'm scared of how he gets when he's mad. I don't want to ruin anything, but sometimes I feel like I have to tiptoe." Her sister came forward with a voicemail Kayla had left the night before she died. In it, she said she was heading over to Jordan's to clear the air, and that if things didn't go well, she might just leave early and come stay the weekend at home. She laughed at the end. "I'll be fine. I always am." But she wasn't. The media began to circle the story. YouTube star found dead. Online fame ends in tragedy. Rumors swirled, some true, many cruel. Her death was picked apart by people who had never met her. Strangers used her name for views. Old videos of her resurfaced and were recontextualized, analyzed, theorized, debated. The police said the case was ongoing. Jordan wasn't charged. He remained free. But as pressure mounted, as more evidence came to light, something changed. 3 months later, on a cloudy Thursday morning, Jordan Hayes was arrested in a parking garage in West Hollywood. The charge, second-degree murder. Detectives stated that new forensic tests showed Kayla's fingerprints on the sleeping pill bottle, but smudged in a way that suggested her hands had been moved after she lost consciousness. Her DNA was found on the bathroom floor, behind the toilet, and on the collar of Jordan's shirt. A neighbor came forward and said they heard yelling around midnight. And in a newly recovered iCloud backup, Kayla's last video draft was recovered. In it, she looked into the camera, smiling, then paused. She said, "If this is the last video I ever post, I hope y'all know I tried to be happy. I really did." The file was dated the night before she died. Her family sat in court, holding hands as the charges were read aloud. Her mother wore Kayla's necklace. Her father refused to look at Jordan. The trial was set to begin the following spring. But the story didn't end there. The courtroom was packed. Rows of family, press, and quiet observers sat shoulder to shoulder, waiting. Some wore Kayla's merch, hoodies with her catchphrases, shirts bearing her smiling face. Others held signs that read, "Justice for Kayla," or simply clutched each other's hands. The air felt heavy. Silent, except for the rustle of paper and the soft clicks of camera shutters as Jordan Hayes entered, shackled at the wrists. He didn't look like the man Kayla's audience had seen in her vlogs, the charming boyfriend who made her laugh during skincare routines and brought her flowers, just because. He looked hollow. Thinner. Pale. His once confident stride reduced to a shuffle. When he sat down beside his attorney, he didn't glance at her family. He stared ahead, unmoving. The prosecution started with the evidence, careful, methodical, deliberate. They played the 911 call, and the courtroom shifted. It was quiet, uncertain. Jordan's voice came through, panicked but precise. He said she wasn't breathing. He said he tried to wake her. But the timestamp told a different story. The time gap between her estimated death and the call raised a red flag that refused to be ignored. Then came the timeline. Surveillance footage showed Kayla entering the building alone at 9:41 p.m. The prosecution paused the video. Froze it. Let everyone see her, healthy, alert, and full of life. They pointed to her posture, her bag, her expression. She wasn't under the influence. She wasn't sluggish. This was someone expecting to wake up tomorrow. They laid out the forensic report. The toxicology screen showed a lethal dose of zolpidem, more than any one person should have had access to without a prescription. The bottle, found in Jordan's cabinet, contained only trace residue. No fingerprints other than Kayla's and his. Her prints were smeared, incomplete. The implication was clear, her hands didn't place the pills there of her own will. The injuries came next. Photographs. Measurements. Testimony from a forensic pathologist who explained, in clinical but damning terms, that the bruising on Kayla's upper arms indicated forceful restraint. Marks on her inner thighs suggested a fall. Scratches on her neck hinted at contact. The crowd stirred, quietly horrified. The defense argued otherwise. They claimed Kayla had struggled with sleep, that she had taken more pills than advised. That she had been anxious. That the bruises could have come from a fall during an accidental overdose. They called character witnesses, friends of Jordan's who said they had seen no signs of abuse. They questioned the reliability of the time of death estimate. They said Kayla's lifestyle, her pressures as a public figure, could have led her to make a tragic mistake. But her family pushed back. Kayla's older sister took the stand, reading aloud messages from Kayla's private journal, which she had kept locked in her cloud drive. In one entry, dated just 12 days before her death, Kayla wrote, "I don't think he'll ever hurt me. But I don't like how he talks to me when he's angry. It's like he changes. Cold. Like a stranger." She went on to describe a night where he raised his voice so loud that the neighbor knocked. A night where she left and slept in her car to avoid further confrontation. She ended the entry with, "I'm scared to lose him, but I'm more scared to keep going like this." When her sister's voice cracked, the courtroom fell still. Not even the judge spoke. That kind of silence doesn't come from shock, it comes from recognition. The next piece of evidence broke the tension completely. A neighbor, who had remained anonymous during the initial investigation, came forward with footage from a hallway camera they had installed themselves, something they used to monitor package thefts. It was grainy, but the audio was clear. Around 12:17 a.m., loud voices echoed from behind Jordan's apartment door. A woman's voice, Kayla's, yelled, "Don't touch me." Then a loud bang. Then silence. That footage had never been submitted before. It had been sitting on a home security app, untouched, until the neighbors saw news coverage of the trial and realized what they had. It changed everything. The prosecution rested their case soon after. When it came time for Jordan to testify, he declined. His lawyer spoke on his behalf. Blamed stress. Blamed pressure. Said Jordan had been dealing with personal demons and had never intended for any harm to come to Kayla. But intent didn't matter. Evidence did. After weeks of testimony, forensic analysis, digital records, and emotional confessions, the jury returned their verdict. Guilty. Second-degree murder. Maximum sentence recommended. As the judge read the decision, Kayla's mother sobbed into her husband's chest. Her best friend buried her face in her hands. One row behind them, a young woman whispered, "She got her justice." Jordan showed no emotion. He stared forward. Still. Quiet. The same way he stood that morning the police found her. After sentencing, Kayla's channel saw a surge of new subscribers. Not for content, but for remembrance. Her most popular video, a makeup tutorial with over 2 million views, was flooded with comments. "You deserve more. We miss you, Kayla. Justice served, but the pain stays. Happy heavenly birthday." Her family launched the Kayla Rivera Foundation, aimed at supporting women in toxic relationships, especially those hidden behind the walls of success and digital fame. Her story was no longer just about tragedy. It became a warning. A legacy. A call to awareness in a world that often confuses a smiling post with a happy life. Kayla Rivera was more than a victim. She was a daughter, a friend, a creator, a dreamer. And though her life was stolen in the silence of an early morning hour, her voice still echoes. Through every comment. Every story told. Every girl who sees herself in her and chooses to walk away before it's too late. Because the truth didn't die in apartment 1403. It lived. And in the end, it spoke louder than anyone expected. Months passed. The headlines faded. The hashtags slowed. And the world, as it always does, moved on to the next story. But for those closest to Kayla, time had split into two parts, before she died, and everything after. Her mother, Teresa Rivera, stopped going to church. The same church where Kayla used to perform spoken word on Sundays, just before her channel blew up. The pews reminded her of Kayla's voice. The smell of the old wooden floor reminded her of the daughter she used to braid hair for on Sunday mornings. Instead of prayer, she found solace in silence. A former friend of Kayla's came forward anonymously, telling a podcast host about a night they'd gone out and Jordan showed up uninvited. Said he watched Kayla from across the bar. Didn't speak. Just stared. She thought it was creepy. But Kayla had brushed it off, laughing nervously. "He's just protective," she'd said. But in her eyes, there had been something else. Other women reached out privately. One said she dated Jordan in college. Claimed he'd isolated her from her friends, made her delete photos of exes, told her what to wear. Another said he once punched a hole in the wall beside her head when she tried to leave during an argument. None had gone to the police. None had felt they had enough proof. But they had stories. And now, they had a reason to tell them. A civil suit followed. Kayla's channel was rebranded. Not deleted, her family made that decision early on. They wanted her voice to stay alive. But the new uploads were different. Documentary-style breakdowns of digital abuse. Interviews with survivors. Educational content about spotting red flags early, and how love shouldn't hurt. The channel became a resource. A platform. A light for others trying to escape the same kind of shadow Kayla had quietly lived under. The documentary that followed, 1403, the Kayla Rivera story, premiered on the anniversary of her death. It opened with home footage of her as a child, dancing barefoot in the living room, oversized sunglasses on her tiny face. It ended with the final Instagram story she posted just hours before her death. In the last clip, she was laughing, sipping on bubble tea, sitting cross-legged in Jordan's apartment. The caption read, "Big day tomorrow. 22. Let's see what life's got for me." That post, replayed across millions of screens, broke hearts. Because we all knew what life had for her. And we all knew it should have been more. Each year since, on April 2nd, thousands of people post selfies wearing pink, her favorite color, with the hashtag for Kayla. They share their stories. Their escapes. Their healing. And they keep her memory alive. Kayla Rivera didn't die in silence. Her voice stayed. Her story grew. And her legacy became louder than her absence. She was more than what happened to her. She was a creator. A daughter. A fighter. A light. And no matter how much time passes, the world still remembers. The documentary reached over 30 million views in its first week. Viewers across the globe flooded the comment sections, some confessing they'd once followed Kayla for makeup tips or lifestyle hauls, never realizing the pain behind her curated smile. Others admitted they saw themselves in her. A few left cryptic comments, half confessions, half cries for help, each one echoing the same thing: "She looked so happy. I thought she was okay." Behind the scenes, Kayla's family began receiving letters. Handwritten ones. From strangers. Survivors. Mothers. Daughters. Husbands who had failed to notice the bruises on their wives until it was too late. One letter came from a corrections officer who now worked where Jordan Hayes was serving his sentence. It was short. Only a few lines. "He doesn't talk. Doesn't read. Sits all day staring at the wall. You got your justice. But I think he's already in his own kind of prison." Jordan was serving a 40-year sentence without parole. The cell block housed mostly violent offenders, murderers, abusers, men who thought rage made them powerful. In there, Jordan wasn't the charming boyfriend on camera anymore. He was a cautionary tale. An example. Another man whose anger cost a life, and whose silence afterward only deepened the guilt. But justice in court was never the end. It wasn't for Kayla's best friend, Nia, who had to face the online hate from those who accused her of knowing something. People who'd seen photos of them together and decided, based on nothing, that she should have seen the signs. She went off social media. Deleted every post. Moved cities. Started over. But she never forgave herself for not asking the right questions. It wasn't for Kayla's fans either, many of them young women who had looked up to her as a blueprint for how to succeed, how to love, how to live out loud. When the truth unraveled, they began questioning their own relationships. Was it controlling, or was he just jealous? Was it passion, or was it possession? Kayla's story had drawn a line in the sand. And once they saw it, they couldn't unsee it. Teresa Rivera told lawmakers plainly, "My daughter didn't die because no one saw the signs. She died because the world doesn't treat them seriously until it's too late." Her voice shook. But she didn't cry. There was a pattern. There always had been. Kayla's death had become more than a crime. It had become a mirror. A national reflection on how easily charm hides control, how quickly love can be weaponized, how often women are silenced before they're ever truly heard. In her old bedroom, still preserved by her mother, a soft light shone through a string of fairy lights Kayla had pinned up above her vanity. Her makeup was still in the drawers. Brushes cleaned. A planner left open on her desk. The last entry read: Finish edit. Schedule upload. Call Nia. Buy birthday balloons. She never made it to any of those. But the story she left behind reached millions. Changed laws. Saved lives. Kayla Rivera didn't just influence through her tutorials or brand deals or vlogs. She became a voice for every woman who whispered her truth, hoping someone would listen. And now, they do. What do you think really happened in that apartment during those final hours? Was justice truly served, or was there more left unsaid, unheard, unseen? We want to hear from you. Share your thoughts in the comments below. What warning signs stood out to you? Could this tragedy have been prevented? If you or someone you know is in a dangerous relationship, know that help is out there. You are not alone. We've included resources in the description. Don't let Kayla's story fade into silence. Subscribe for more true stories that demand to be heard. Like this video if her voice moved you. And share it, to protect someone who might still be smiling through the fear. Because sometimes, a single story can save a life.